that's part of some of the extra added coolness factor that students enjoy. But the most important component is to ensure that teachers are able to convey the opportunities that this technology is bringing forward.
You're listening to the Drone Radio Show podcast, the show about drones and the people who use them for business, fun, and research. Hosted by Randy Goers.
Hello, everyone. This is Randy Goers, and welcome to the Drone Radio Show podcast, episode 242. How can high school and middle school students prepare for a future in the drone industry? For that question, we turn to Matthew Johnson, CEO of M3 Drone Training Zone and M3 Drone Productions. Matthew founded M3 Aerial Productions in 2015, an aerial data and diagnostics company using unmanned aerial vehicles. As the company evolved, Matthew began offering training courses, which grew to become a major focus of the company. So much so that he created two separate entities to deliver aerial data and drone pilot training. In addition to being an entrepreneur, Matthew taught high school mathematics in Manitoba for 5 years. He used drones to instruct students on the principles of trigonometry. Matthew developed a training course for teachers to give them an understanding of the business opportunities in the drone industry, so they could transfer that knowledge to middle and high school students. In this edition of the Drone Radio Show, Matthew talks about the Drones in the Classroom program and how students can prepare themselves for exciting opportunities in the drone industry. But before we hear from Matthew, I want to thank those of you who are supporting my funding campaign. Now you have the option of making a one-time donation in any amount by going to droneradioshow.com/donate. Whether it's $1, $100, or much more, you can help defray the cost of production and keep the podcast going and growing. And if you'd like to make a monthly contribution, you can still go to patreon.com/droneradioshow. So let's learn how drones in the classroom can prepare students for a career in the drone industry with Matthew Johnson of M3 Drone Training Zone and M3 Drone Productions. Let's pick up the interview where I asked Matthew to introduce himself.
My name is Matthew Johnson. I'm with M3 Drone Training Zone in Canada, operating as M3 Aerial Productions. That's what we started the company out as in 2015, and we've shifted gears a little bit and changed the name of the company to Drone Training Zone, started up a new company called Drone Productions, M3 Drone Productions. So now we have these two arms rather than combined. We have the training arm and the services arm. So I've been involved in the industry for almost 5 years now, conducting drone services, what we started out as, and we've kind of shifted over to including and having a main focus on the training component. I have 10 years of experience in the Canadian Armed Forces, and I spent 5 years as a mathematics teacher, high school mathematics teacher. I left teaching in 2017 to be able to focus on the company. But before I left, I started using drones in the classroom a little bit, and I was running a drone club at the high school that I taught at. And that formed the foundation of what we're going to be talking about today, the Drones in the Classroom program.
Before we talk about the Drones in the Classroom program, can you share with us how the training part of your business evolved?
In Canada anyways, there was a fairly large gap in the quality of training. There was a lot of online courses that were strictly online that just didn't provide a full scope of understanding for pilots who want to go out there and be serious in the drone industry. And so I developed a course in 2016, moving into 2017, started teaching it on weekends while I was still a teacher. I would travel around Canada, going to different major city centers, running the training. I was finding that it was successful enough that I needed to be able to focus more on it. And so I've continued to split my time between training and services, though now I've developed a network of pilots all across Canada. I've run over almost 70 courses now from coast to coast. I've run them up in the far north and the east coast of Canada, out in Atlantic Canada, and out on Vancouver there and all across. And we've trained over 1,000 pilots now through our program. And then now with the education program coming to the forefront, we're hoping to get that number 10x in fairly no time at all.
How has the drone services part of your business performed?
It's been growing. Like, I've been able to kind of stay at the forefront. We're using some pretty cool technologies. Like, we're involved in the cinematic side of things to some extent. So we're using the higher end systems in that regard. We do mapping for surveying. We do a lot of different types of services. We're using tethering systems to allow us to keep the drone up flying constantly without having to land it for battery swaps for various time-lapse types of imagery. And we've got some special other technology that allows us to fly over people in Canada. I know it's a little bit different in the States. You have similar regulations, but in Canada, there's a regulation that you can't fly over people unless the drone is designated by the manufacturer and approved by Transport Canada as being safe to fly over people. And there's very few of those. So we're trying to stay at the forefront in order to be able to remain competitive and stay quite active. And with all of our pilots now across the country, the value of having a pilot network that I've trained personally allows me to have a great deal of confidence in the pilots who I'm going to hire, because I know that they know what they need to know. I've always felt a little bit edgy about some other pilot networks. When I was thinking about joining them, I'm going, well, how do they quality control? How do they ensure that their pilots know what they're supposed to know? That's one of the ways that I feel quite confident just having my own very large network now across the country, is that I've trained them personally. And now we have trainers now set up all across the country to be able to train for us, or for me rather, using our course content. So we've got a 2-day course, teaches people all the essential knowledge that Transport Canada requires you to know, which is very, very similar to what the FAA requires you to know. The regulations just switched over in June, and we have a very similar format now to what the FAA has, where you have to write a government exam similar to the Part 107.
I think the point you make about having the confidence in your pilots is critical. I mean, knowing that your pilots have gone through your training program, I think really helps foster that confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been to some very remote locations, and sometimes you run a course in a remote location and you think you're not going to get very many people, and all of a sudden you get more people from a Goose Bay, Labrador, which is just almost in the middle of nowhere in northern Canada. We had 12 people versus in downtown Vancouver, we had 5 people for a course. So knowing that those 12 people are qualified, if there's work up there in the mining industry or some other type of industry, I know some of the people who have those qualifications, who have background in different industries and that sort of thing. So it's been very valuable in that sense.
What type of work is most prevalent in Canada right now?
Well, it really depends on where you are. Like, obviously, it's a massive country. I'm located right in the middle, like right in Winnipeg, which is kind of in the middle of the agriculture belt. But agriculture on the prairies is a lot different than agriculture in southern Ontario or in the valleys on the east side of the country. Those areas are similar to California agriculture, where you're going to be growing orchards and vineyards and very, very high value types of crops. That drone technology could have a massive value in terms of micromanaging for precision agriculture. When you're dealing with large crops like oats and wheat, where it costs between $160 and $300 per acre to grow a crop, sometimes it just doesn't make sense for a farmer to pay $800 for a very high resolution drone map when they can get a satellite image which is comparable. So we're still very deeply involved in agriculture. We do a lot of work with studies because they need that high precision. So agriculture has been a big thing for us. The media side of things has actually grown quite a bit. We get calls all the time now. It's probably the bulk of what I do is filming movies. Like there's a lot of movies that want to come to Winnipeg because we have some pretty good tax breaks for film companies to come here. So there's a booming industry right now, and being one of the few companies in our area that has the technology to be able to work on those sets, those film sets, has given us a little bit of an advantage in that respect.
Okay, let's shift gears and talk about the Drones in the Classroom program. First of all, tell us about the program.
The whole idea of Drones in the Classroom is to introduce teachers to the drone industry, not specifically just to drones. I know a lot of teachers have heard about drones. They know they've probably been using drones in the classroom. There are a few teachers that actually use drones in the classroom. I would say most don't. Even the ones that do use drones, they don't understand the value. They don't necessarily understand the value of drones as an industry. And so the Drones in the Classroom program is designed to show them that this is a disruptive technology and that we really need to put a focus on integrating this technology into our learning. We're not teaching about drones. We're using drones as a tool. In order to use them as a tool, we do have to learn a little bit about them, and it helps students to become more innovative down the road when they're using innovative technologies now.
I have spoken with other educators who are using drones in their schools, some to explore air flight, others to teach coding. What differentiates what you're doing with Drones in the Classroom?
Drones in the Classroom is an encompassing program, so it includes those types of applications. It's not specific to STEM necessarily. Obviously, there's a big focus in those areas. I was a math teacher and I used drones in my classroom to teach trigonometry, to teach area and volume calculations. We did some really cool things in my classroom using my Inspire 1 back in the day. But you're not limited to just the use of drones for STEM. Like, you can use them for art, you can use them for English language arts, you can have debates about them, you can use them to help tell stories. Geography is a huge one, learning about GIS and that sort of thing. One of the first applications is when students are coming through, in Canada anyways, most curriculums start learning about flight in grade 6. So if you can move from using a paper airplane to using a drone, that's going to be able to start that interest in the technology pretty early. And I think that that's very important.
What ages is the program geared to?
It starts for grade 6 and it runs all the way through grade 12. The Drones in the Classroom program has curriculum outcomes sprinkled all throughout it. So what it is essentially a way to introduce school divisions to the technology. Teachers will get trained up. They'll learn about the industry. They'll learn about the knowledge requirements. They'll get certified. That way they can use the drones outside. They can have students practice with the systems. They can use them then to achieve curricular outcomes, which we'll call them special learning outcomes.
What kind of training and commitments do the teachers have to make before they actually bring the program into the classroom?
So instead of targeting a teacher or targeting a specific school, what we're doing is we're bringing school divisions online. So we started with Frontier School Division in Manitoba, which is a very, very large school division that covers most of the province of Manitoba. And it goes all the way up from Churchill, Manitoba in the far north on Hudson Bay, all the way down almost to the border of the United States. And we needed them to get online by adopting the program at a divisional level rather than at a teacher level. So the division sent teachers to get trained. At this point, we've had 12 of their teachers come through our program. And it's been 2 years now that we've been integrating it. And it's not something that happens instantly. First, we had a few teachers come through, and then we had a few more. We had a superintendent come through our program. So they're learning about all of that important knowledge requirement stuff, aviation and the regulations and safety protocol and all that kind of stuff. And they're learning about the value of the technology and industry and all the different applications. We talk about all that kind of stuff and where opportunities are now, where opportunities are in the future. And then those teachers go out into their respective schools, and the division they've got a Frontier School Division has a very progressive system that they have been right on top of the technology. They've got these big drone kits. They've got a Tello kit and a Spark kit and a Mavic kit. So they've got multiple Mavics that they're able to send out to different schools. Like it's a box with multiple systems in it. And so they'll progress teachers through. A teacher will start out with a Tello kit and they'll start using that and introduce the DJI Tello to students at a fairly simple level and get them hands-on. They're able to fly those indoors. They're able to fly them outdoors if there's no wind. Then they progress to a little bit more of a capable system. The Spark is a little bit heavier, a little bit more capable, and they're able to use that to do a little bit more lifting and carrying different weights and moving things around and learning about forces and all that good stuff in physics. And then they move up. They can eventually be able to use the Mavic systems. And even beyond that, there's some schools that are looking at specializing in certain technologies. If they've got a very developed art program, then some schools are looking at getting like an Inspire 2 or something like that, where they can have students using very high-end equipment. Now, if that school has that system, they're able to share it with another school, as long as that other school has a teacher that has come through the program and been able to demonstrate competency.
How long is the training program?
Our program is ultimately 3 days of in-class instructor-led training, plus about 20 to 25 hours of online self-study. So it works out to almost 50 hours of learning that the teachers have to go through as professional development. And some of them have been taking that training throughout the summers, and some of them have been taking it during the Christmas holidays and stuff like that, or just trying to get it done in the evenings when they're between marking all their papers and all that stuff.
At the end of the training program, are the teachers certified drone pilots as well?
Yes, that's the number one goal, is to get them certified. So they have to go through our ground school program. They learn all that knowledge that's required, and then they're able to go and pass the government exam. Once they pass the advanced RPAS, Canada called RPAS, remotely piloted aircraft systems, to pass the RPAS advanced exam to be able to use drones in controlled airspace. Otherwise, most of the schools are located in controlled airspaces or within 3 nautical miles of an airport. And so it's not good enough for a teacher to have a basic understanding of the technology and get just the basic certification, because that still limits you in a lot of ways to what you can do with the technology. And if you really want to be able to show the value of the technology, then you need to be able to take it outside and do some really cool things like mapping and high-end video and stuff like that.
How about the lesson plans? How are they developed?
A big component of this program is having a set of lesson plans that teachers can actually take away. We put them through the 2 days of ground school, then they do training, flight training, the hands-on, learning how to fly the systems, learning how to maintain the systems, and then we do education integration training where they actually learn how to use a drone in a classroom. Very important components about how students need to respect the technology, the safety issues and hazards, and they do a half day of actual lesson demonstration. And man, those teachers are absolutely blown away. They're all like kids going through this program. And when they walk away, they have access to a horde of lesson plans. We've got about 50 lesson plans that are available in a package that after the program is accessible for schools to look at investing in.
So do you teach them how to create their own lesson plans or how to follow the lesson plans?
If you're a teacher, then you understand the creative aspect of some of these things. And if I go in and I look at a curriculum and look at the curricular outcomes, it doesn't take very long to go, okay, that one there, I could use a drone to help teach that component of that one. I can use a drone for that one there and that one there and that one there. What we do in that third day of the training where we have the teacher education integration training, they're actually going through a couple of the lessons that we have created, and we show them very unique ways of using drones. And in Canada, the design process has become a very important part of education. And so we're actually having students designing ahead of time. They're designing a modification to a system and then using that to execute something that throughout that process, they're touching on multiple curricular outcomes for some various activity, but they're also using the design process to create something, which is very, very, very important.
Is the curriculum being taught now?
Frontier School Division has been using them now. They started last year, and this is year 2 now. They've got, like I said, I think there's 12 personnel that are qualified. And we've also had a couple other school divisions in Manitoba take our training as well. And now what we're doing is we're looking to partner with post-secondary education institutions like universities and colleges to be able to partner with them to offer our training through them to the school boards across Canada and across the United States.
I know it's a new program, but what kind of results can you share?
Last year, after we had a few of their teachers come through the program, one of them, for example, was up in Churchill, Manitoba, which is cold, and they weren't able to do any outdoor flights last year. This year, they do have several more teachers now who are enabled and are actually using them, which is great. Last year was kind of a divisional integration push. So they were just trying to get the technology. They were trying to get their teachers qualified. Some of them had done a little bit of work in the classroom, but to that point, that's year 2 of the program where they're really focusing on starting to use them in the classroom.
What are you doing to get the message out to other school divisions?
We ran a conference called the Western Drone Show in May of this year in Winnipeg. The whole point of the Western Drone Show was to introduce teachers to the drone industry, similar to what the Drones in the Classroom program is all about. So we had teachers coming from the West Coast, basically had representation from British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Ontario. We had 166 attendees at this conference, which was pretty good since we started planning it in December of 2017. We had only about 5 months of planning, and we were able to pull together a fantastic conference, which was the first. And now we're working on the second to be held in Winnipeg in 2020. So this conference, we had teachers who all are already using the drone technology. We had university professors presenting about how they're using the technology for advanced geomatics and engineering and those sorts of things. We had industry representatives, news camera operators, and major industry representatives talking about how they're using it. So we wanted to get teachers there and principals and superintendents at the conference so that they could not only see and hear from other teachers and school divisions who are using the technology, but also hear from experts in the industry who are using the technology so that there's context. You need to understand the context. That's one of the most important pieces of learning is this piece of technology can do this pretty cool thing, but how is that cool thing that it can do actually used in the real world? And when you see all the ways that drones are being used, and don't even want to try and rattle off the industries that are being used, because I'm sure that people who listen to your show understand all those, but it's disruptive.
You mentioned earlier that an objective was to introduce teachers to the business of drones. Does that mean helping them understand the various career paths that a student might want to take?
Yeah, absolutely. So in Canada, we have our Unmanned Systems Canada Drone Association has a student competition that they run every year. It's a university level student competition, but we introduced that to the teachers to show them what the next echelon, the next tier of students. So the students that are coming through high school, after they go into their post-secondary learning, they're able to build on the knowledge that they've been developing in high school to work with universities to create the next greatest technology, the next innovation. And so they're doing some pretty cool things. The last year, the Unmanned Systems Canada student competition had students developing a system that could fly around inspecting solar panels, finding heat spots and tagging those heat spots, geotagging them somehow. Some were trying to develop dart systems where they would just drop a dart or make a mark or something like that that would be able to identify that point. But there were schools from all across Canada, universities from all across Canada that were competing in that. And so we introduced that to the teachers and they go, oh man, that's cool. That's something that we would want our students to be able to go on we can show them that opportunity and show them that once they're done here at this high school level, they can go on and they can specialize in this technology. That is motivating to students.
As a former math teacher, can you give us some insight into what a program like this can achieve?
Yeah, I went from mapping the football field and calculating altitudes and angles of elevation. And I was teaching at an inner city school in Winnipeg, and all of the issues that come along with inner city schools make it hard enough to teach trigonometry as it is. Using a drone opened my eyes to introduce the technology to those students. They were absolutely engaged with the content that we were covering. And so to be able to take that to other teachers and help them engage students in learning with all the other distractions that we have now, the smart technology, it seems like the next logical step is that schools need to move in this direction. They need to start integrating this technology, drone technology, and 3D printing, and all those other new edge, leading edge technologies. They have to adopt them. And the success that you can get from early adoption at a school level is tremendous for those students that can go on after school, after high school, into universities and have a leg up on other students that maybe haven't been exposed to it yet.
Are there any new divisions that are getting ready to enter the program?
Well, currently we're in discussions with a school division in the States, which is exciting. We have many across Canada now. After having them attend the Western Drone Show, we're in talks with several school divisions across the country, and Winnipeg is kind of our hotspot. That's ground zero, so that's where we're focusing mostly on at this point to roll it out across the city of Winnipeg and the province of Manitoba.
Is there anything that we missed that we should talk about?
The most important component is to ensure that the technology is used in a meaningful way. It has to be meaningful for students to gain value from using a new technology. It has to be integrated in a way that provides them with some value other than, hey, this is fun. It's not a video game. We don't want them just playing a video game in class, flying a drone around, and that's part of some of the extra added coolness factor that students enjoy. But the most important component is to ensure that teachers are able to convey the opportunities that this technology is bringing forward and teach it in a meaningful way.
And for my final question, Matthew, what message would you like to leave regarding drones in the classroom?
It's a disruptive technology. And just like with the internet and microprocessors using computers, and whenever there's a new disruptive technology like this, when I was coming through school in the 80s and early 90s, it was computers. And schools that were just starting to introduce students to computers were starting with coding back then. And those students are now the leaders of the industries, the tech industries now, who had that start back then. Now, getting students started with this disruptive technology at an early age will allow them to do some really great things down the line. We need to keep reinforcing the importance of aerospace and aviation. We're going to Mars, so we need to be able to keep the disruptive technology at the forefront of the classroom.
That's it for episode 242 of the Drone Radio Show. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Matthew Johnson and learning about the Drones in the Classroom program. I want to thank Matthew for taking the time to speak with me. If you want to learn more about drones in the classroom or want to connect with Matthew, check out the webpage at m3aerial.com. If you like the Drone Radio Show, please consider supporting the podcast with a small donation. The content is always free, but for as little as $1, you can help defray the cost of production and keep the podcast going and growing. To donate, go to droneradioshow.com/donate or patreon.com/droneradioshow. And thanks for listening. Your support means a lot to me, and I hope you'll listen to more episodes of the Drone Radio Show podcast to hear how others are using drones for business, fun, and research. For the Drone Radio Show, I'm Randy Goers.
This has been the Drone Radio Show podcast. More information on today's show can be found on our website at www.droneradioshow.com. If you're using drone technology for business, fun, or research and would like to share your experience on the show, please visit our website and fill out a guest appearance application. And don't forget to follow us on your favorite social media channels.